Every tree has its place. Every rock and stone has its place. And he puts them in a precise place. And he also has a law that says no object can occupy the space of another object, right? And so everything has its place in its system, but it also follows a code. And one of those codes is the Fibonacci sequence, right? And so we can see that in trees. I'm looking out your window right now and I see a tree and I can see the trunk, and I can see then the trunk transitions to branches, and those branches transition to smaller branches and twigs, and where the leaves are going to come out.
This is the Men Refined podcast.
Hey friends, welcome to the Men Refined podcast. I'm your host, Rafael, and today we have
Ad Vogele.
How you doing, my friend?
Happy to be here. Doing well. Happy Good Friday, my friend.
Yeah, we are recording this episode in Good Friday.
It is a beautiful, glorious day. It's great.
It is. In the year 2022, the year of the Lord.
2023, actually, my friend.
You're absolutely right. I just wanted to make sure that you can catch that one.
You were testing me.
I was just wanted to make sure that you can catch that one.
You're always testing me.
Thinking about this episode, I think I don't know a better person to discuss creativity and creation and how God is in the job of creating things and designing things. We can say that God is a creative God. I think we can definitely say that. And in fact, he invented creativity, and creativity is part of his very nature. The Bible says in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So he started as creator because he is God, the creator of the universe. He created heavens and the earth. You're a designer.
That's right.
By trade. Mm-hmm. You study that. You spend some money in it.
I grew up in it.
You make money out of it.
You know, I grew up in design, much like a farm kid grows up on the farm. I am a third generation designer. My grandfather is one of the pioneers in what we would consider branding and graphic design today. He is from Chicago, and he founded RVI, and then that turned into VSA Partners out of Chicago, and then various family members, aunts and uncles, or just uncle, went into that field, and then I went into that field as well. And my family, we're a huge art collector. So if you ever come over to my house, and I know you are over at our house all the time, you see that our house is filled with art from a lot of different, whether it's folk art from Panama or New Mexico, or if it's modern art or contemporary art. I gotta bring you something from Venezuela, man. I would love it. I love it. I love the aesthetic of folk art. I love it. It's very real. It's very cultural, and I love to immerse myself in other cultures. So I love that type of art. But so I live, eat, and breathe art and design, and sometimes it's a blessing. I mean, it really has been a blessing in my life, but also a lot of times it's a curse for some people around me. It can be a little overbearing.
That means you're putting a lot of pressure in it.
Well, I love it. I love it so much. It's my life.
So everything that God creates is unique.
That's right.
He created us in his image, and we all unique image bearers of God. Totally different. We're all unique on the creation.
I would tread. I would want to define that word unique, because we are based on a model, right? And so design is very mechanical. It's very. When we design, we have to define what that is, right? So design is the process of setting a series of elements within a system with the intended purpose to reach an outcome, an objective, right? And so when we are designing something, it's following a model that we've previously thought of, that we've dreamt up, we were creative. So this is the process of creativity, right? And at the core of creativity is imagination, right? The ability to see something that doesn't necessarily exist yet. Mm. And as a designer, we take that creativity, we take the imagination, and we develop a roadmap, right? And how to achieve, like, how do we arrive at that outcome that we're imagining, right? And so that's the link between imagination. It starts with imagination. So we serve a God, and we are created beings of a God that has an imagination, right?
Yes.
So he imagined what he wanted, right?
Absolutely.
He imagined the world. He imagined the heavens. He imagined everything that resided within his creation. Then he created it, right? And he followed his own design, right? And so design is very orderly. It has an order to it. Everything has a place. Everything has a purpose in order to achieve a desired outcome, right? So what's God's desired outcome? Right? It's to enjoy his creation, have a relationship with us, right? See us interact with his creation, admire him through his creation.
Yeah,
right?
the Bible says that after he created X and Y and Z, he said it was good.
It was good. And what is that? I mean, so I think we can interpret that in a few ways, right? So what does it mean? Like, it was good. He said it was good.
The word good is probably doesn't give enough weight to what he intended by good. It was just, it was good in the sense of it is completed the way I wanted it to be.
Yeah, it's in order, right?
It is just perfect the way I wanted it to be. That's
good.
how good it was.
It's where it should be, right?
Yes.
It's in order.
Yes.
Right. And I really like that because like when people say, "Oh, it's like they equate when God said it was good, like, "Oh yeah, like I created this cuisine. Oh, and it tasted good, right? It tasted good. It's not the same thing. It's good. It's
right.
It was good. It's done. It's in order. Let's move on.
Because that will be different. That will be it was good in the eye of the beholder, but not for everybody. It may not be good.
Yeah.
Right. Now we're talking about taste.
Yeah. This God said
what is good for you is not good for me.
This is good. Everything is good to be able to work in order.
Yeah.
Well, so when I was teaching, right, one way to describe design, what design is look at a machine in your life, right? Whether it be a washing machine or your vehicle or whatever you use to achieve a certain task that you're trying to accomplish, right? Whether it be the laundry or driving to your friend's house or driving to an interview. So let's just take like a washing machine. We can see it, we know what it looks like, right? But we also have an understanding that there's internal elements, mechanisms that work together within a system in order to achieve the desired outcome, washing your clothes, right? And every little element has a certain piece. And if one piece is out of order, right, what do you have to do? You have to call a repair person. You have to put it back in order, right, in order for you to wash your clothes. Same thing goes with your vehicle, right? The main purpose of my truck is to get me to where I need to be, right? So it has a combustion engine, and there's various elements within the combustion system that fuels the pistons, moves the pistons, and then that transitions over to the transmission system that moves the wheels and the axles and stuff. And then I have my tires that interact with the road that I'm driving on, so I can contend with this thing called gravity. Right. And so I can move freely on the road with ease and safety. So there's so many elements that we have to be, that we consider within the design system, within design, in order to achieve, in a lot of the sense, what we can consider a very simple task. Right. So when God is creating the world, he created, what did he create first?
The heavens and the earth.
Right. So, and he said it was good. So, he knows that we have to have a canvas, right? He has to have a canvas. So he created terra firma, right? And he created the atmospheres, right? And so all this to contain something, right? And then what did he create next? He's in order, right?
That's right.
He creates the birds and the sky, and he creates the waters that fill because everything, the waters have a purpose to it. The waters on the earth, we need water in order to survive, right? And the waters are a habitat for various creatures that help the system of life. He created animals, people. But it's all in order, right? He created the heavens and the earth first. You can't create the animals first.
Right.
Right? So there is a process,
yeah.
Right? So in design, there's a process of how we have to achieve something. You've heard the term, don't put the cart before the horse.
Right.
Right? You have to go step by step in order to achieve the objective, just like going to IKEA and you're trying to put together, right? But here's the thing, that's designed, right?
Well, and back to that, I think what you just said is important to understand, because we as men, we have to understand creativity and use creativity to our advantage. I could probably say we have to be creative enough to understand where we're going and what we want to do with our families, with our lives. We have to recreate an environment where we want to get to and work towards that goal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how can we men, what is the part of creativity that plays an important part in our lives? Jesus modeled creativity. I have a good excerpt here from churchleaders.com. It says, Jesus was a creative communicator. He used parables. When he thought in Matthew 13, he drew in the sand, right, so people to understand. He used a Roman coin to explain his answers. He cursed a fig tree and picked up a piece of bread in order to explain truth. He divided fish, turned over tables, and put a child on his knees, all to illustrate important lessons to the people that were asking questions. So he had to be creative enough to put himself in that place so they can understand what he was trying to do. Use creativity, right? That's what parables are. So you can come across what you're trying to say to people in a way that they really understand it and grasp the magnitude of what these God came to do.
But think about this.
Walking on earth.
So he's using his own creation to illustrate
as he pleases.
As he pleases.
Amen to that.
He's using his own creation to illustrate a message, right? In order for us to comprehend and understand what his objective is, what he wants us to understand. So that, I mean, it goes in even deeper than, he's using bread. Well, he created everything there is to make that bread. And so based on his creating that bread that he knew that it was going to nourish our bodies, how then can he take the actual object of bread and turn that into a lesson and turn that into an illustration for us to understand a greater picture that he wants us to see? Isn't that amazing? So he creates various elements that have a very pragmatic purpose in the world. And then he can use those very pragmatic elements that he's created in this world that sustains us to be an artist with his words, to be an artist with his illustrator with his words, and give us an understanding, a deep understanding, an emotional connection to what he's saying, right? And to me, that shows so much evidence that not only does God exist, but Jesus is God, right? Because he understands his own creation.
The mastering of it.
No, he's a master.
Is mind-blowing. What he shows in front of people as he comes across, and he's not even at this point, he's not even calling himself to be the Son of Man. He's coming as a teacher, and he's showing his mastering over everything.
But I get what you're saying with mastering, but I think it's something he doesn't have to master it. Mastering says that he started off as like an apprentice, as a student, but he's the creator. You don't have to master what you've created, right? So, and because I do think that's an interesting thing, and Jesus may be saying, Ad's wrong right now. I have no clue, right? But in my understanding, the whole mastering is the process of understanding something from zero understanding to full understanding, right? And God is understanding. God is truth. Truth doesn't need to understand itself. Truth is the truth, right? And so I think in design, when we're trying to imitate God's design, right? And that's, as designers, that's what we try to do. Mm-hmm. We try to create understanding and breathe life and understanding and truth into a message. And really, in graphic design, we're trying to convince people that or in advertising or in other types of publication, trying to convince people that this is what they should be aligning themselves with, whether we're selling toothpaste or a financial plan or what have you, delivering information in a concise and understandable way. But the creator, he creates it, and he's kind of reverse on that. He creates it, and then he brings meaning in other ways through his creation, and that's amazing to me.
Yeah, how we as men can use creativity or elements of design to figure our lives, to figure our families. I'm a believer that, hey, even if you have marital problems, issues in your marriage, we as men, we have to be creative enough to figure out ways in which we can have some sort of influence on our wives to understand where they are, and for us also to understand where we want to get to. So we have to use creativity to somehow find solutions to our problems. I mean, being creative enough to understand that maybe what I'm doing is not working.
Yeah, I mean,
what are the things that I have to change in my life? The behaviors that I have to change. Where are these seasons that I have to pivot from mentally, physically, to really turn the corner? We have to be creative enough to apply certain things, certain needs, and just perform some sort of mind shift on our own, control ourselves.
I totally agree. And I think that what you're saying is, you have to have a certain level of understanding, first self-awareness and even awareness of the world around you, right? And even if your world around you is a cubicle at your office, right?
Self-awareness 101. Can you teach that?
Yeah, but then also awareness of other people, right? But let me ask you a question. So if you go to the average Joe and they try to define, hey, what does being creative mean? What are they going to say to you? For me, people know that I'm in a very expressive field of design, in graphic design, and it's very artistic, right? So when they say, "Oh, wow, I'm an accountant," and you're doing that, I'm not a creative person. They're equating creativity with art, right? And I think there's obviously a correlation with art and design, but that's not creativity. I mean, obviously, in order to be an artist, you have to utilize creativity as your biggest foundation, right? Your imagination. But creativity is actually the ability to solve problems.
Right.
And to see the next, and to be able to see the next step.
Yes.
Right. And to get you from A, B, C, D in a process, right? So, if this guy's thinking that creativity is being an artist, well, yeah, he's right, because you can't have a finished painting without stretching your canvas first, right? You have to create the canvas, just like how God created the earth, right? He created his canvas. So, but the point that you're making, right, is so incredibly valuable, because, hey, if you are an accountant for a firm, and I'm just using an accountant because,
the most boring people.
Or they can be the most exciting, right?
Yes, that's right.
I don't know.
I think it's. But an accountant needs to have some sort of level of creativity, because
100%, right? But like, hey, how can you solve this problem for me?
You gotta solve issues. You gotta be an attention to detail kind of guy.
So you have to have a level of understanding. You have to have a level of understanding on tax laws. You have to have a level of understanding of how much income is this person making? Where can we find credits here? And you know what I mean? So there is a definite level of creativity there. And then you can even bring an imagination there. Well, let me just imagine how we can just formulate this, and then let me create it, right? Let me imagine that how we can make this work. And then the creation part is putting it together real quickly in your head. Then there's a design part of it, which is implementing that strategy, that creative strategy. So you apply that to your life, right? With your family. So there's this level of understanding that you have with this person that you married, right? How can I be creative? And, how do I imagine our family? How do we imagine our family, right? What does that look like? right? Let's create it, and that's a fun process, right? And then you have your family, and what do you do with it? How do you design this family, right? And then where do you go from there, right? What is, because each family is different, right? And then if you don't have a plan, right? If you're not designing your family, then you have what's called a dysfunctional family, which there's always a level of dysfunction in every family because we're not all perfect designers and creators like our Father in heaven.
Psychology today says that creativity encompasses the ability to discover new and original ideas, connections, and solutions to problems, right? It's a part of our drive as humans, and it can foster resilience, spark joy, and provide opportunities for yourself. This is psychology today, but I guess what I want to get to is that how do we use this to be better men, one, to be a better father, to be a better human being in your community, right? As a man, like how do you use creativity? What you said about your spouse is extremely important, because if you have issues in your relationship and things are not working out, whatever you're doing is not working out, you gotta come to your senses. You have to be able to have the ability to discover new ideas on and apply certain things that to see if that works in your relationship. Because obviously something is not working, right? So you said self-awareness. Self-awareness, I think, is the key for everything. But so we have to be self-aware of what's working and what's not working. So, and then we need to be able to mold certain characteristics in our relationship, try different things, and that's going to take creativity for us. So it's going to force our minds to dwell in working in different things, right? Take a handle on what's not working and try multiple things until you find what works. And that takes creativity. That you're trying to design also a model that works for your relationship.
I think you're approaching it where a lot of people are in their lives, is they have to tackle something from the from within the system that's already been that they've already established that they don't know that they're building, right?
Well, okay, but you have to be self-aware, and you want to be able to change it, though.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't want to dwell on what do I do.
Let's focus on the ideal, right? So first and foremost, our Creator gave us a play-by-play book on how He designed, let's say, marriage, right? And so, but also, let's even go back to the origin, right? So in design, we always want to go back to the origin. So as a designer, we have various projects that are at different phases in their lifespan, whether they're in the gestation process or in their mature process of their organization. And but a lot of the times we enter a system that's going through a rebranding or a rethinking because something's not working. Either the world changed, human behavior changed, or what have you, or they had a bad system or bad habits within that system, right?
Right.
And so we have to go back in and change that.
You're gonna change the structure, right?
So that's kind of like what you're talking about. If we were to talk to if a young guy were listening to this right now, we would say and we're starting from scratch, and we're at the origin of a process of a program. Let's say you're a young guy and you're in high school, and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, the Lord spoke to me, and I have to start doing things correctly right now. Probably, I mean, it's probably extremely rare.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: when God created us, what did He say? He created us in His image. In His image, right?
Or image bearer.
And so if God is the ideal, right, is the canon, how we would say it in the art world. He is the point of origin and how we should model ourselves, right? He is the manifesto. We are derivatives of that, right? So as derivatives, He's already created us to be creators. Right? We're little creators. Yeah. We're little designers.
Yeah.
We have a little imagination, right? Yeah. But we're derivatives of that. So, okay, so understand that first, right? And then if you understand that first, then you can say, okay, what are my objectives as a created being in God's image, All right. Okay. It's this, and this. What skill sets did God give me? This, and this.
Correct.
All right. Do I imagine myself having a wife? Yeah. Or do I imagine myself being a monk? Right. Do I imagine myself being this? Okay. Yes. So I'm going to imagine myself being a married man. I already know my skill sets. I'm already focused on following that path to serve God and the skill sets that he gave me. So then I know that. And I know that I eventually want to be married to someone. All right. Well, what does God tell me to do right now? Even though I don't know that, that woman exists yet. Well, honor her right now anyway, even though that she doesn't exist. Meaning, don't have sexual relationships with anyone else. Don't try to guard your mind with impure thoughts, all that kind of stuff, right? Prepare yourself to be married. Then eventually you'll find a woman to help you on your path in this process that God laid out for you. And she becomes a partner in that. She's not your outcome. She's not your goal. She is your partner. She comes alongside you. All right. Then now you're two people in one. How do you design that now? What does this look like? How do we imagine husband and wife to be? Right? What are we doing? Right? My wife has her skill sets that God gave her. How do we then merge these into one larger thing? Okay, we imagine ourselves having children. Well, what does God intend for us to do with these children? So they're constantly they're defining what this is, right? They're imagining, they're defining, which is the creative process, and then they're implementing, which is the design process, right? And they're doing that. Now, no one's perfect because we all fall short of the glory of God and we're all sinners, right? So then what you're saying is there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be an element within the design, within the system of this family that's going to break. How do we repair that? Is it repairable, right? Do we need to build something from scratch? How do we heal, right? And that's where the Lord, he already designed in his system that he is going to come to earth and he's going to dwell with his people, right? And he's going to actually come in the most humble beginnings, even though he is the beginning, right? See, this blows my mind as a creator, as an imagining. Our God has such a huge imagination, is that he's before time, but then he sets himself within time, right? And he's able to do that. He imagined that. And he's like, you know what? And in order to bring this even a stronger story, because our Lord loves the story, right? I'm going to make myself come from this young woman and this young man. We're going to come from this type of lineage. I'm going to come from the most undesirable place in the Holy Land, in Nazareth, right? I'm going to be born in Bethlehem.
In a manger.
In a disgusting, smelly, disgusting place, right? Almost like a wild animal.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to come from the very, very bottom below everyone so he can scoop everyone up, and then he's going to die on the cross for us. Right? But he can't die. So his physical body that he inhabits dies, and then he raises again 3 days later, which is what we're celebrating now. So talk about design. Talk about imagination, creativity, design, and how do we apply that to our lives as men, whether it be in our families, whether it be by ourselves, whether it be in a workplace, whether it be in your men's group, whether it be at the grocery store, selecting the type of vehicle you're going to drive, all these things. It's like, these are all decisions that we're making, and how does that honor the design, the creative process that you put in itself for your life? Because everyone has an image of what kind of life they want to live.
Either good or bad, right? And I think God has been patient with his creation, to say the least, because he has given us enough room for us to make mistakes, expecting that when we come back to him, he can receive us with his grace that are new every day. But a lot of people don't understand that, or don't want to understand that you're going to make mistakes, and that's that's a real thing, and the struggle is real. We're going to struggle each day. Jesus said that in this world we'll have trouble, we'll face trouble, but take heart. He has overcome the world. I think the faith that we have towards our God needs to be paramount in how we live our lives, knowing that His grace will always be with us, that it's okay to make mistakes. Sometimes we think that making a mistake is just going to take us away from the love of God. And I think understanding that and knowing that it's okay, I will not say likely it's okay to make mistakes, because, we always want to strive to be better. And that's what this process of sanctification means. Once we receive Jesus into our hearts, we want to get better as we get closer to Him, as He reveals Himself to us. But relationships, going back to relationships, our marriages, our relationship with other people is messy, because now you got two people involved, at least, in a relationship. That brings all kinds of issues, because everybody has their own baggage. But how we are called to love each other in community, to love our neighbors, I think it's important to understand that we love somebody else, not out of how you look or how you treat us, not in that response, but we love them because God first loved us. So knowing that what He did in the cross, He did it for us. That means we need to do that for other people too. And that's a challenge for many people, even in the Christian community. We as Christians, sometimes that's challenging for us, because we expect people to be in our own bubble and act the same way that we act. And we don't want to be judged, because who are you to judge me? And so I think that this is where creativity comes in, because we need to be able to change our minds sometimes and understand, man, I got to love these person just as God loved me.
This is the problem, Rafael, is because this is the created as the derivative creator, right? So we are created beings, but also with the ability to create. So there's a juxtaposition there, right? It's like the potter with the clay pot, right? And so this is when Jesus talks about we're battling against our flesh. We're battling against our created self, right?
Absolutely.
And we're in a battle to try to overcome our created self to be a creator as well, right? So when we emulate the creator, that means that we're actually maturing and we're going outside of self to think of others, to solve a problem, to formulate a plan that is good, right? And we talked about, God said this was good. So that takes a lot of effort and intentionality. And actually you have, in order to be a designer and creative and have imagination, you have to be intentional. You have to really desire. And I think it really starts with the imagination process, starts with a desire, right? A desire to do something. And sometimes you're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, that's okay. But you have a desire, to do something, right?
Some sort of framework, right?
Yeah.
Where you start to develop whatever it is that you that you want to do.
And this is the beautiful thing about our Creator and about the Holy Spirit, is that He'll impress Himself in a very creative way on you. Be sensitive to that and go, wow, I feel a desire, and check it with the word, right? Always check it with it, because I feel a desire to sleep with a bunch of women. Like, oh no, that's not from the Lord, right? Because the Lord specifically says that. So there is a playbook that we have, and we should always be in the Word and understanding this playbook and really trying to understand God, right? Understand the design process, and God is a God of process, because process is order.
Yeah.
Right.
God is a God of order.
But when we look at this, what does the enemy try to do?
Mess with our desires. Use our desires to our disadvantage.
Well, what's the opposite of design?
Disorder.
Chaos, right? Chaos. And so design is a measurable process. It's measurable. So if you can see something and you can see how and you can measure it, right? You can say that that's designed, right? Chaos, the actual process of chaos is not a process at all. It can't be measured because there's no direct thought process of destruction.
Because there's no order.
There's no order of it. That's exactly.
You can't measure something that is not order because you don't know where to begin.
But you can measure the outcome of that disorder.
Right.
Of what
the
happened,
effects of it.
The effects of it. You can measure. Like, wow, we lost X amount of cattle. We lost X amount of this. X amount of people. Right, because of the chaos that came in here. Because of the disorder. So the enemy will come in and disrupt God's order because he hates God. He hates the design. He hates that we are creative, just like our Father. Just like the Creator. He hates that about us.
In the design world, what are some of the most important things that you have seen that have changed some of our livelihood? I don't know, in the last century or so. And one thing I noticed is the majority of the biggest design events in our lifetime, I think they have been accomplished by people that are not even Christians, right? We have the big deal now about electric cars, right? Now a car can move with a battery, that was never heard of it before, right? Technology has allowed us to get there. Social media.
Hold on, there was an electric car back in the early 1900s. I mean, it
got to a point, right? Before there were not even cars.
Yeah.
Right. People were in horses. So I guess
this is another part of design, right? So when you look at God's design and you really examine it, right? God is very precise with everything, and God loves numbers. He loves math, right? So every blade of grass has its place. Every tree has its place. Every rock and stone has its place. And he puts them in a precise place. And he also has a law that says no object can occupy the space of another object, right? And so everything has its place in its system, but it also follows a code, right? And one of those codes is the Fibonacci sequence. Right. And so we can see that in trees. I'm looking out your window right now and I see a tree and I can see the trunk, and I can see then the trunk transitions to branches, and those branches transition to smaller branches and twigs, and where the leaves are going to come out. And so that follows a certain kind of order. Right. And so we can see that in the physical space, but then we can also see that in an evolutionary space as far as technology, right? And so if you can see technology as a Fibonacci sequence, so it's like, okay, so the Fibonacci sequence is this plus itself equals that plus that equals that, and it constantly expands on itself. Well, as far as technology goes, it's actually almost reverse Fibonacci, where it's like it's the span between different inventions gets cut in half. Right. So it obviously it speeds up a bit, and we're at a place where it's constantly, the next iPhone is going to come out whenever. And so it's a hyper evolution of technology. Right. So we're seeing this, and we're seeing AI, and we're seeing within the past 5 years, crazy things are happening. Crazy things are happening with what we're believing is true or not true, or AI is coming to the table, and all of a sudden our way of life is going to change, and our children are not even going to know what's different.
How do you think that is going to affect our life, not our life, our Christianity, right? Our sense of knowing that God is the ultimate creator of heaven and earth, and we are image bearers of God. How does this crazy technology that we are we're faced with right here. We're in 2023 right now. This is what we're living.
Yeah.
Nothing compared to in the early 1900s, right? These things were unheard of.
Yeah.
Like the printing press invention, it was a catalyst for the Bible and the Word of God to be sent all over the world. So
what's the apex of history? Right. So when we look at this stuff, and when we're looking at Christianity, we can see this as design and understanding as well. Right. So let's say, obviously, the apex is what happened on Easter. Right. Jesus Christ goes to Calvary. He dies on a cross for our sins, and then we're saved. Right. Through the death and blood of our living God. And then 3 days later, he rises again. right? That's the apex of history right there.
Yeah.
Now, if you go before that, right, at the very beginning, what was people's understanding of God? Very little.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, God as the creator, as the
And then what happened? There is a legion of demons that came down that fell from heaven, and people were probably swayed that these were gods, right? And they formed their own religions and so forth, right? So they're in a lot of ways, people were very gullible. And I'm not understanding truth, but they're open to anything and everything, and so they're believing that this fallen angel may be a god, right? So that's why we have like how many gods in Hinduism or
Greek mythology and all that.
But then all of a sudden, the closer they got to the apex, to the pinnacle of Jesus Christ on the cross, their understanding of God and their relationship with God is probably getting better. You look at our apostles. And then they're on fire because they're very close to it. But now we're on the other side of the mountain, right? And
meaning we know the whole story. We just know too much now.
We know a lot, but then also we know too much, and we have access to too much technology, right? So
But how do you think that
our vision gets a little bit inverted in a sense, because we then become masters of certain types of. And so it can steer us away from the truth. So the point being is that know what the truth is, right? Don't falter from what that truth is, and don't let the world try to sway you on a different understanding other than what God has already said, right? So for me as a designer, and I was a designer before I was a Christian, and so my opinion of design has changed because of my acceptance and my conviction in Jesus Christ, right? And being locked to, this is the truth. It's infallible. It's perfect. God is the perfect designer. No one else is. He put everything in place. Everything, if you fully believe that what's in between Genesis and Revelation is true, then your understanding of design and what is happening around you is it's more clear and actually more vibrant, and you can start to discern what is fiction and what is reality.
You say that you were a designer before you were a Christian. Would you say that the way you design things nowadays change from where you were not a Christian? You were still a designer back then, but you were not a Christian. Have being a Christian, have your beliefs affected the way you design?
That's a really good question. I think my goal.
Of course, I made it.
Yeah, yeah, you're so good. My goals have definitely changed. I think my understanding of design has grown. My process, I mean, obviously I've matured, within the past 20 some odd years that I've been
mature with age and
with the
tools, etc.
But I can also, there is a metrics in our field where I can measure myself against another designer that started along with me, right? And so
but this is more personal than anything.
I know. So it's like, okay, so I can, but as a designer, I can. We're always comparing, right? Mm-hmm. And we can say, okay, and there's always precedents that we're looking at, and I can look at a designer that's been in the profession just as long as me, and I can go, okay, my level of understanding is different than their level of understanding. They're approaching this.
Okay.
And I look at in my industry now, and it's like, wow, they're not even doing design anymore.
What does that mean?
Well,
what are they doing? Can you explain that to a layperson?
Yeah.
Like,
So
what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, look at what like the whole branding of society right now. So I mean, it is designed. They are designing it. Yes. Is it based on reality and helping people understand? No, it's based on getting people to buy into what you want them to buy into, right? So it's more manipulative. I mean, advertising has been.
Well, but that's because the amount of data that advertising companies have now, they know what you want, and they then design and implement strategies based on the data that you're giving them. So it's all based on.
But I also love looking at the precedents of history, right? So if you look at how society was prior to branding, right? Prior to introducing little characters to sell Rice Krispies, or when that form of advertising was introduced to the public, it was exciting because they haven't seen it before. Mm-hmm. If you were to show that to a kid now, they're like, "Oh yeah, of course, it's no big deal."
Sometimes I think that everything has been made already. Everything has been quote unquote designed. Right now, I feel in my maybe ignorant eye of design and advertising, it's like people are just using certain things from what have already been designed through the ages, and they're just reusing what is already in place.
Yeah.
Is that something that it's happening? That's how I see it.
Well, that's
from outside. But is that something that? Do you think that's part of it?
Yeah, all design is a piggyback on design, right? So,
but it seems like now more than ever.
Yeah,
it's like people don't want to think anymore. That's how sometimes I feel.
And people capitalize on that, right? So this is where we get the great manipulation. Let's back up just a second. The word. So let's talk about graphic design, right? Graphic design is extremely powerful. Because this is where it's communicating to our senses, and it's appealing to our senses, or it's not appealing, and we respond to that, right? So the word graphic means to make clear, right? So if you were to watch a movie, you're like, wow, that was a really graphic scene. It means that wow, you really saw it. Like I was shown an episode of Walking Dead. It's like, whoa, dude, that was graphic. They didn't need to show all that, but they did. It was super graphic. So, but in graphic design, when we're trying to communicate something, we're trying to make it clear, and we're trying to show the truth of something. So, as going back to how I've changed as a designer with Christ, is I want to show the truth. Let's communicate the truth of what this is. Whether it be labeling restrooms now, which is controversial. Well, no, this is a restroom for people that stand up and do that function, or it. But graphic design now, it's not even that. It's trying to manipulate and trying to convince people that no, let's just do genderless. I'm working on a project right now where it's like, we don't want to gender the bathrooms. Well,
how do people know where to go? That's just a simple question.
So I said, okay, and this was controversial because the client wants to it to be perceived as a prestigious lodge, right? So we're not going to say restrooms. We're going to say WC, water closet, right? So we say WC. I said, okay, well,
but that used to be used before.
Yeah, but
that's nothing new.
But here in the United States, if you say WC, you're like,
what is that?
I don't know what that is, right?
Yeah,
I'm confused. But what we've had international symbols, right? Pictograms, and we have a male-female pictogram that really that says restroom. That all that means is restroom.
Correct.
All right. So this client wants to just use WC until we have a restroom. Oh, I don't want to use a restroom pictogram. I don't want to use the male, female. Do we have to show genders? I just want to say WC. I'm like, well, you are now going from being graphic to being confusing, right? So as a design, I said to him, as a designer, my main goal is to make it clear to where one of the most important messages that we can give a guest into a lodge or to any public space is where the restroom is. Where do you perform a bodily function?
Where my restroom is.
Yeah, or where I need to go into because, we all know it. Your bodily functions don't care about waiting for you.
Yeah.
Right? You need to know that instantly.
But sometimes I notice in the past, people sometimes don't look at the room that they're running into, and as they come out of the restroom, they notice that, oops, I just went into the ladies' restroom.
Yeah.
Like, how many times?
Dude, that's happened to me
That
before.
happened to me before.
Right.
I'm like, oh, wow. Like, and I run out of it.
I'm like, get me
just,
out of here.
You just don't read.
Yeah, dude, but
There's a lot of that.
But this is where I'm talking about where people are going in my field. They're going to the lies and the confusion, and they're trying to and they're putting that they're trying to implement that into a system, thinking that's the right thing to do. But I guarantee you what's going to happen is I'm going to get the general manager about a month or so after the lodge opens, and they say, hey, we need you to make pictograms for us, or we need to change this WC to say restrooms, right? Because
it's creating too many issues now.
Well, and because what that then creates is the guest experience. It affects the guest experience, because now I'm frustrated because I just peed my pants, right? And I had a negative experience in your lodge, right? Tell me where to go. I don't know. I don't speak this language, the WC. Stop being so pretentious. You know what I mean? And so as a designer and as a person that wants to always communicate truth, I get a little heated when it goes, stop being so pretentious. Stop being so of this world and of your flesh, of your own understanding, and stop being so cutesy or whatever, and just start communicating something that is clear and concise.
Yeah. Now in closing, I just wanna reiterate something that we talked back and forth already, and that is the fact that we as men, we need to make sure that creativity is at the forefront in our lives. Because I think creativity, as our creator, God, as he created the heavens and the earth and everything in between, and light and darkness, we need to be able to create an environment for our families, for our wives. We need to be able to create an environment for us to thrive, right? And then what do you think is a simple way to understand that creativity is really a big part of who we are as the creation?
Like I said before, I collect a lot of art, and I think this is why art exists, is for us to take a step back, admire something that's beautiful, right? And so take a step back, admire the beautiful life that God has so graciously awarded you, and understand why, and really meditate on what he was thinking when he created you, because he said he created a masterpiece. That's his words, not mine.
Amen.
Okay, so what is it about that God created that's a masterpiece? So so come to the table with a level of understanding. So that means take a step back, examine what God created, and try to find an understanding of what he wants to do in your life, and then have an imagination. Imagine, wow, wouldn't it be cool if this? Wouldn't it be amazing if that? And then start to devise a plan, right, which is creative. And then, but really understand the elements that are going to make that plan work, and that's design, right? So in order, I really want to have a family. I'm going to go have a family. Well, you kind of need a wife first, right? Oh yeah, I forgot about that little element.
Oh, did you really?
Right? I didn't. But no, I mean, and the fact of the matter is, just listen to but God is so much bigger than us. So God may be saying something totally different. Okay, get in the Word, understand the process, God's process, and how He so wonderfully created His creation. Or how he so wonderfully imagined his creation and how he executed it and said it was good.
And it was good. Hey friends, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And if this content is helpful to you, would you consider rating this episode and subscribe to the podcast? It will mean the world to me. For more information, you can follow me on Twitter by going to twitter.com/Rafael Cifontes. Until next time, God bless you.